Dr. India Woods here. As a veterinarian, I demand a lot of my scrubs on the job. That's why, whether I'm at the clinic or visiting a four-legged friend out in the field, I show up in FIGS. FIGS are made for the sometimes crazy situations I find myself in. It doesn't matter if I have to squat, sit, bend, or even chase after one of my patients. FIGS moves with me and keeps me comfortable in the highest pressure situations. FIGS are designed specifically for healthcare professionals and have a lot of pockets and zip compartments that never snag, so I can carry a ton of necessities like treats, gloves, instruments, and more. FIGS are also liquid repellent and never fade after the wash. One of the best moments is taking a fresh pair out of the dryer before a long shift. As a vet, I spend a lot of my time worrying about my patients and the people who love them, and it's not always easy. FIGS gives me one less thing to worry about, and even help me feel a little more confident on the job. If my patients could talk, they'd tell you to hurry up and get some FIGS. Show up in FIGS. Get 15% off your first order by visiting wearfigs.com and use code FIGSRX at checkout. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX.
Thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming any life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first objective is we want you to know that whatever you're experiencing in life, whatever you're encountering, you're not alone. We want to join you to let you know that we together can help you through whatever challenge you may have that at the time may seem too difficult to be able to overcome. Our second objective is to help you determine with a very confident resolve there are multiple solutions, multiple factors involved in any life encounter. It's a matter of thinking into and thinking through the life situation you are encountering to determine the various options, the various solutions that are available to you. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If whatever you're experiencing is a result of a decision you made sometime in the past, such that if you had a life redo, you would make a different decision, we want to help you determine the objective facts and factors to evaluate to help you reach a more informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. Together we are the Cooper Culture, and the Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. Today we feature Rick Bradley of the Recovery Centers of America, who had a drug start at an early age. It was his way of coping with life inadequacies, but he has a unique way of, in a very relatable way, to help families overcome what they may think is a stigma associated with substance abuse. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can take from this podcast?
Ron, in this podcast, Rick encourages families that know or suspect they have a family member that's either starting into drugs or into drugs, and they don't know how to address the issue. One of Rick's jobs is to deal with families, and he asks them, don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed, because there are resources for families, so don't wait till it's too late.
Rick is very relatable. Let's listen together. Rick, thanks for joining us. I know that our audience is going to be very interested in just kind of a top level of your background, where you've been. Our primary purpose is to learn what you have learned from your past that you're using for today and forward. You are with the Recovery Centers of America, and my guess is you're dealing with a lot of people in various forms of substance abuse. One of the things that is very interesting to Marty, me, and our listeners, is there any way that we might be able to identify some of the traits of an abuser that before they make that fateful decision, is there a possibility that we might be able to help them make a better decision to avoid perhaps the past that you have experienced? But we're very interested in learning from your past and how we can be very positive for today and forward.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So to your question, or to the point that you're making, is there a way that families, or even looking at my own family, could they have had some sort of early intervention that would have kind of kept me from my addiction. And that's kind of a loaded answer. It goes back to is it nature or nurture type of question. Was I born an addict, or did my life circumstances kind of lead me? And I think it's both. I think that my family has had addiction issues. I think I'm definitely more susceptible to it. But with my families, and they could have loved me clean and sober, they would have. But their lack of education around things on how to operate probably helped exacerbate my addiction, or just not seeing the signals and the signs. So to just tell like a brief background on myself, I grew up in a good, loving family, was brought up with strong value system. We went to church. I did well in school, played sports, did things like that. But when those things started to kind of fall by the wayside, when the sports started to kind of take a back seat in my life, when the school's grades started to kind of go down, I don't think my mother or my father or my loved ones knew enough to question, like, wow, is this an addiction issue? Is there a bigger problem at hand here? So I would like to think that, yeah, maybe if they did know a little bit more, if they were able to identify some of those behaviors that goes along with addiction, that maybe that early intervention would have saved me from some level of consequences that I ran into with addiction. Ron, did you want me to get a little bit more in depth in my personal story?
Yeah, go ahead, Rick. Let us know at what age you started to consume and how long you did engage, and then how long have you been free?
Okay. So kind of piggybacking off of what I just said about like the nature and nurture, I definitely had some tendencies and some behaviors that are consistent with those with addiction. Like I had some thought processes. Like I had some unrealistic expectations very early on in life, around like 12, 13, 14 years old, where I wanted to be the best at sports and not practice. I wanted to be the smartest kid, not really study. Wanted the nicest car, didn't necessarily want to work for it. So these were some common things that were kind of going on in my head. So right around like 14, 15, 16 years old, I started to get this like rebellious streak where life's not really living up to my expectations of it. So I started to look elsewhere, like wanted to just be fun, have fun with friends, excessively drink. Now, at 16 years old, it would have been hard to distinguish whether this was just normal 16-year-old, 17-year-old behavior, or was this going down the wrong path. And if my parents, anyone would have struggled to see that. But as I progressed in life, when I got to 18, 19, 20 years old, it really started to become problematic. My drinking and drug usage in my college years started to trump everything else. And it's not necessarily how much you drink or even the amount of drugs that you do. It's more so, what is it? What are you using it for? What are your motives? What else are you sacrificing for these things? So somebody literally, if I've talked to people regularly, if they want to drink every single day, but their life has a quality of life that they want to live, then to each his own. For me, I was making a lot of life sacrifices. I wasn't showing up to school. This was in college. I went to college and joined the basketball team. I had quit that. So these were kind of some of the certain telltale signs that my alcohol and my drug usage were really starting to take over my life. Moving forward, the addiction being like a progressive illness and a progressive disease, it got worse, and when it was mostly just alcohol and some prescription painkillers, into my early 20s, it started to lead into other substances, things like I picked up heroin, I picked up like heavier cocaine, and that started to become regular use. So at 23, 24 years old, when a lot of my friends are graduating college or going and buying homes and getting engaged and getting married, I was checking into my first treatment center because things had gotten so bad. Now, and like I said, my family had supported me the entire time. And one thing that my mom did really well was she look for outside help. I think dealing with a lot of families today, I think this is stigmatized so much that they try to keep the problem within the family. They're embarrassed to bring this to light. They're like, what did I do wrong? Did I do this to my son or my daughter? And also, a lot of families want to give their loved one the benefit of the doubt when they tell them, "Oh, I'm going to be fine. I'll get better. I'll be able to knock this problem by myself." But my mom had grown up with an alcoholic father, so she had gone to Al-Anon meetings. She had already been down this road 20 years prior, so she knew enough to contact a professional. And I really got to say that outside intervention was so important when you trace back my recovery process, because if it wasn't for that third-party perspective, that outside person that wasn't emotionally attached to the situation, my mother probably would have kept buying my BS. She would have let me stay in her basement, and I'd be honest with you, I'd probably still be living there today if she didn't accept outside help. So going along in my recovery process, so I went to treatment the first time, and I remember getting out of treatment. I'm like, okay, well, I just learned all this stuff about myself. I'm about 30 days removed from drugs and alcohol, and thinking like I'd be crazy to go back to it. But sure enough, without staying in a program of recovery, whether that be therapy, IOP, AA, 12-step programs, I found myself right back to drugs and alcohol within a month. And I remember scratching my head like, how did I get here again? So I believe I was living with my mother at the time, and this is where her outside help kind of came into play, where they worked with her and told her, like, look, you need to set strong boundaries. You know that this is not acceptable for your household, and if he's going to keep doing these behaviors, he can't live here. So she did that, and she told me I needed to enter treatment again and move into a recovery home. And to be honest with you, I was not very happy about it, but it was probably it was a jumping off point for me to save my life. And I did that, and she held firm boundaries. Her and my father held firm boundaries. I went to a treatment center, and I went to a sober living home where I needed to learn how to relive my life. I needed to I literally, at this point, I was 4 years heavy into my addiction. I wasn't doing laundry regularly. I wasn't washing dishes. I was living messy. And I went to this sober living home, and I learned how to do all that again. I learned how to build strong relationships with people. I got a sponsor. I got a home group. I got into a 12-step program. And it wasn't necessarily easy at first. I just knew that the addictive life didn't have anything to offer me, and I knew I wanted more out of my life, and I didn't have a backup plan. I couldn't go home to mom and dad's house where they were going to let me live on the couch until I figured things out, because they knew that I needed additional help. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I'm in recovery, and I have a few years, and I'm really trying to find my way. I'm trying to find what do I want to do with my life. And an individual that I knew in recovery had started at Recovery Centers of America, being their director of outreach. And this woman took a liking to me. She saw something in me, and she brought me on board to do the outreach position. And this has been such an important piece in my recovery, is that I get to today go out and engage with professionals and family members and walk them through this process, because I think so much of what my mother went through and what a lot of other family members go through is like, when their loved one struggles, they just don't know what to do. They have no idea what to do. So they do nothing, and they wait for the problem to hopefully fix itself. Now I work in a field, I work for a company, I work in a position where I get to go out there and be the educator and be that point person that individuals can call when they're unsure of what to do. Just give myself or my colleagues that I work with, give us a call, and we'll connect you with the right services. Because I really think think getting that messaging out is what's so important today. I know high schools and colleges and even I think as low as like middle school, they're doing a lot of education around this for families to be able to identify problems with addiction. I know employer groups are starting to do this. There's a lot of usage and alcohol issues in the workplace, and employers just kind of thought they were disciplinary things, but they're starting to identify it for something much bigger than that, where they can intervene early and get people help and get them over to treatment so they can begin their recovery process. So, Ron, was there anything else particular that you wanted me to touch on?
No, Rick, that's a great overview. Two aspects of what you said really stick out with me, and I want to take them in order, and I want to make certain that I'm accurately assimilating what you're saying. Early on, you said in an earlier life, you wanted to be, I'm wondering, Rick, in hindsight, in the context of wanted to be, better grades, better person, and so forth, did you allow that to develop into feelings of inadequacy that possibly drugs and alcohol, at least temporarily, was the means by which you could forget about that inadequacy? I don't want to misinterpret what you said, but I'm just curious.
No, that's perfect, Ron. And honestly, I actually used that language pretty regularly. It was a lot of feelings of inadequacy. So I had expectations for myself in life, but my life was not really aligning with my expectations, which came with feelings of shame, like you mentioned, inadequacy, I'm not good enough, and drugs and alcohol, whether we know it at that point in our life or not, become our coping mechanism for those feelings. I was ill-equipped to process through those feelings by myself. So I found the next best option, which was drug and alcohol, which made me feel elated. They made me feel happy. I knew they were going to produce the effect that they didn't produce, and it made me feel good. So I at a very early age, I started to run from those feelings, but those feelings started to build up along the way, which unless I got outside help, I wasn't necessarily able to process or cope with those feelings on my own.
I want to combine what you just said with what I think is extremely important for those of us who are maybe a part of the family of a person who is engaged in any kind of a substance disease, and that's seeking outside help. I use the term frequently. It's awareness. It's feeling confident enough that I can seek outside help. In other words, what I'm doing is acknowledging two things. One, the problem exists. Two, I don't know how to handle it. And in the context, Rick, of possibly Recovery Centers of America, is there possibly a way that we could have identified your need to be more than what you were? And if it's not possible, and I never want to stereotype, stigmatize, or otherwise label somebody, but I'm very curious, Rick, from your very professional perspective, the life that you have lived, in the context of seeking outside help, learning what you are all about in Recovery Centers of America, can we learn from that and possibly intervene at an early enough age to prevent some of what is happening? It's somewhat of a loaded question.
No, and I follow you, and you intervene is the right word here. So the addicted individual like myself tends to be the last one to identify that they need help, but everyone around them tends to know months, maybe even years before that person steps into a treatment center or gets any form of help. So what that looks like is we tend to have to educate and intervene on the families first and foremost before the loved one gets help. So, but we don't know they're struggling unless they reach out. So to kind of tie this into Recovery Centers of America, something that we do really great at our company, and I actually love this, is the intervention services. It's actually a free service, but it's really, if a loved one was to reach out and call 1-800-RECOVERY or call RCA, and they just like, hey, I don't know what to do, but I know my loved one is struggling, and that's all they need to know. they've identified that giving their loved one the benefit of the doubt is not necessarily the best course of action because, Ron, I'm going to tell you what typically happens is I might talk to a family member today and they'll say, well, I'll tell you what, I just want to wait and see if he gets better on his own. A year later, I'm still having the same conversation because they kind of got stuck in, let's just wait and see if he figures this out on his own. And 9 times out of 10, if someone doesn't have outside help, things tend to get worse before they get better. So with the intervention services is what they do is they help family members set up strong boundaries and coach them on how to manage their own lives so it doesn't feed the addiction. And that's a piece where my mother, because she had experience with Al-Anon from her early 20s with my grandfather, she had a reference point to go to that she knew that her just letting me live in the basement or her waiting for me to just figure things out on my own was not a good process for her to walk through for me to get better. So if that answers your question.
It does. I think what I'm hearing you say, assimilating some actions your mom took, is it generally a correct statement? Substance abuse will not cure itself on its own. It requires outside intervention, action, something of that nature. Would that be a fair statement, Rick?
I can't speak in absolutes, but I can speak from a percentage standpoint. 90% plus. If someone's crossed over to addiction or alcoholism, they need some type of outside intervention to get better. Can't say 100% of the time. Some people might have an epiphany and things may just work out for them, but it is not in the norm. They typically need some type of outside help.
The way I process what you just said, statistically, it's not likely that a substance abuser will cure themselves. It is possible, but tell me if this would be a correct application. We probably can do more positive by intervening and trying to help that person than to hope this person is a part of the 10% or so that recovers on their own.
Yes. And what it does, too, is by a family member reaching out for help, it helps them heal themselves because addiction is a family disease. We cause a lot of addicted individuals cause a lot of emotional distress in their loved ones, and they need to heal from that. So even if my mother was to reach out to a specialist and that specialist helped her set up boundaries and she began to heal, even if I didn't enter treatment and stay clean and sober, she could begin her own healing process because her mood, her quality of life cannot be contingent upon my sobriety or me being clean. She needs to be okay regardless of that. But what we find is when family members are able to set up proper boundaries, are able to encourage these individuals to go into recovery, it leads to greater success rate for patients.
You didn't use the term tough love, but yet I think that's what I heard your mother did. And I'm guessing that for those of us, and Marty and I are consummate outsiders in that we have never taken drugs, we never developed a taste for alcohol, but for those of us who have a heart passion to help avoid what you've been through or help people recover after they have been through what they've been through, but it is a matter of knowing how to work with people. And does Recovery Center of America have classes that, let's just say Marty and I, we don't have anyone in our family. We are not we're not a part of a drug addicted or anything like that family. We just want to learn such that if we are in the presence of someone who may have the propensity to make less than a good decision, are there classes? Can we work with anyone such as you, Rick, to learn about this disease so that we can be proactive? Again, I want to be very careful not to stereotype, stigmatize, or label anybody, but I do want to proactively intervene where it might be helpful. But I think for those of us who have this kind of a mindset, we just need to learn. So can recovery help us with that?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest answer would be go to Recovery Centers of America website, because there is a laundry list of resources there for individuals. So if they're looking to jump into a family educational seminar, we have that. We have classes that we do online through like webinars and things like that. We also do some things at our centers. So there is a large list of resources that we provide to families to help educate. You can also always call 1-800-RECOVERY, and they will direct you to the appropriate person, whether it be someone on my outreach team, that somebody just may need a list of resources and needs help finding somebody in their particular area, or whether that be in intervention services. So it's not going to be the same for everybody. My suggestion is just pick up the phone and make the phone call, or at least get on the website and start taking advantage of those resources so they can educate themselves, so they know how to handle the situation.
I think what you're saying as well is just take action, particularly in the case of if you are a part of a family that you think may have drug addicted, or let's say is succumbing to substance disease, get engaged and get active in their life. Is there anything negative in that, Rick, in taking that type of stance?
It depends. It's a matter of perspective. So negative, I will say, as a loved one, you want to be able to, you reference the term tough love. And as a loved one, we want to be able to save our family members from pain or discomfort. So there are some negative consequences. So by my mother reaching out for help, me being the addicted individual, I wasn't happy about it. So I was very confrontational with her. I had said some mean things to her. So, yeah, there were some consequences, but in the grand scheme of things, it was what was needed to be done for me to get better. So, because I know a lot of family members are extremely cautious about confronting their loved one, because they know it might ensue a fight or an argument, or it could get physical. Who knows? So that's why I always suggest don't kind of take the tough love approach on your own. Consult with a professional, because I would call it more strategic tough love, because if you just kind of go in there and kind of wing it, you're going to get emotional, and there's such a huge emotional piece to this that things could get out of hand, and then there could be some serious negative consequences. With a professional, at least you can be very process-oriented, and it can be controlled more so, where it might get a little bit bad at first, but it will, in the grand scheme of things, it will lead to much better outcomes.
Would you or other recovery professionals tell us something to the effect that do engage, but be aware that you may, in the short term, to me that would be an operative term, in the short term you may get some adverse consequences from the person who's engaged in substance abuse, but it's short term. Just weather the storm, and just know that whatever verbal abuse or whatever may come from that, it is largely short term. And if we know the actions to take based on your professional help, we just need to endure whatever is happening. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, even if I reference my own personal experience, for my mother setting those boundaries and saying, you can't come home, I don't condone this behavior, there was a big blow up that happened. So in the short term, yeah, things got bad, but in the long term, it was what was needed for me to start my own recovery process and journey.
Thank you for that, Rick. I think what you're saying is, in some cases, everyone's an individual, but in some cases it could be a long process, and you may have to endure a lot, but don't give up. Would that be something you would encourage family professionally?
Yes, because I think people are looking for anyone, family members, potential patients, they're looking for like a quick fix solution, and recovery is a process. And I remember the first time that my mother had worked with an addictions counselor to help usher me into treatment. I went to treatment, but then, like I said, a few months after, I picked up again. And a lot of people might look at that as, well, that was a failure. He went to treatment and it didn't work. But my mother, working with a professional, knew that it's a process, because what that treatment program did is it planted a seed in me that I reached my rock bottom that much quicker again, that I went back to treatment willingly, because I had learned so much when I went to treatment. I had some more self-awareness around my disease. So it can be a process that lasts months. It can be a process that lasts years. But you just have to keep moving forward with things and be proactive.
Well, and that sounds like it could be a lot of perseverance on the loved one's part to endure, but in a very effective way, knowing that this could be a very long-term recovery. And Rick, congratulations on your recovery. Let me ask you a final question. Do you know that you are fully recovered? Do you need to modify your behavior, that you just know you cannot drink around those who do, you cannot consume drugs around those who do, recreational use kind of thing? Do you, based on knowing your past and where you've been, do you need to abstain from that, or are you aware of yourself that you know your limits? I'm trying to come up with the right question.
No, I get that question a lot, and I think everybody who enters a treatment center has it in the back of their mind that they're going to get to a point where they can drink or maybe even use recreationally. And again, statistically, that's a very small percentage of people that actually can go back and actually moderate their usage. For me, it's about risk to reward. And the life I've been able to build up in my recovery, it's not worth the risk to ever try and see if I could drink successfully. I still have much of the behaviors and thoughts and feelings that led me to drugs and alcohol still creep up in my life today. So I need to participate very actively in my own personal recovery. I work a 12-step program. I still talk to a therapist myself, because those thoughts and feelings can get the better of me again. And then in a very short period of time, I myself might find myself alcoholically drinking. So again, it's not worth the risk. I have a very happy, beautiful life today, and I don't need to put alcohol into it to enrich it.
That's very well said. In the context of risk-reward, I now want to go back to the inception of some of your feelings of inadequacy. Are you still recovering from that, and every day you are getting better at that? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Right, absolutely. Yes, I am still recovering from that. And look, I kind of wear this as like a badge of honor. I'm not bashful about talking about these feelings of inadequacy or shame and things that I go through, because I know that other individuals still go through it too, but they're afraid to talk about it. So, yeah, in my life today, I can feel inadequate at work, inadequate in my relationship, inadequate in my friends. Am I doing enough? Am I successful enough? Am I making enough money? All those kinds of things that everybody goes through to an extent can really get the better of me. And then I'll look, my brain will intuitively look for something outside of myself to cope with those feelings. It may not be drugs and alcohol. It could be other problematic behaviors. But eventually, if I don't work on them with the help of a therapist or AA, I believe for myself, I'll probably go back to using a substance to deal with those thoughts and feelings. And now, don't get me wrong, I did a ton of work on it, and I've gotten much better, and I have some good awareness around them now. But if I left unchecked, they can get the better of me.
Thank you for being very vulnerable and sharing exactly who you are. I take that as you're very aware of who you are. You have a level of confidence that you have no problem expressing exactly who you are. I think that's, again, a matter of healthy confidence. I, too, came from a background of feeling inadequate. I never consumed, but I am, as with you, I'm still overcoming, and Marty and I are both at an age where we just want to pass on our life experiences and want to thank you for doing just that. You are doing great work in helping others either through or possibly avoid the life that you have experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned like the word overcoming. I don't know if there actually is ever any overcoming for me or for anybody, even people that aren't addicted individuals. It's just part of the human experience. And knowing that I don't have to go to drugs and alcohol to deal with these feelings, it's just they're very human feelings that I go through, and it's okay. I'm okay today. And that's all I need to be.
That again, very well stated in the context of risk-reward. I'm at a decision point, and I know how to make a good decision is what I heard you just say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much.
Well, thank you, Rick, and congratulations on the life that you're living now, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you having me out.
Rick has somewhat of a methodic approach to the disease of substance abuse. He talks about nature versus nurture. That is, were you caught up in or part of a abuse disease family, or is this something that you got started in on your own? He talked also about risk versus reward, and that is, how do I conduct my life? What is the risk of continuing in an environment in which I am now free of? And the third aspect is cause and effect. In the context of the drug abuse or the substance disease, what is a cause? What is an effect? And for Rick, he had somewhat of an embedded inadequacy that he took drugs to help overcome his feelings of inadequacy. I think what Rick was saying overall, for me personally, is preparedness. Many of us are just too busy to take courses ahead of time. We'll necessarily wait until we have a loved one who's engaged in some form of disease abuse. But if we are of the mindset, if we can put enough priority on education, I think there is a good chance we can be aware of the symptoms. We can, as Rick very eloquently stated, intervene at an appropriate time based on what we know. I'm not supposing that we should intervene on our own, take action without professional advice. Recovery Center of America and other similar places have courses where we can be educated on just what to expect, how to intervene, how to get professional counsel to endure whatever it is we may have to endure for the person, the loved one, who is possibly already engaged in some form of substance abuse, this disease. I hope I'm not too idealistic in hoping there's a possibility that through effective engagement, that is relationships, trusting, genuine friendship, a relationship to where that person with whom we're engaged can put their trust in us, that if we are able to identify, if we're able to be aware of inadequacies such as Rick had, or other factors, possibly just not knowing where a person fits in society, a feeling that they're not able to have friends, whatever the situation may be, maybe we can identify some of those causes, some of those attributes, some of those traits that may be a leading indicator of the propensity of making the wrong decision, and by engaging effectively without labeling, stigmatizing, or otherwise bringing undue attention and being causative and blaming, maybe we can engage in a person's life and help them avoid where Rick and some others have been. That's my hope. I just choose to believe that if we choose to engage and develop those genuine relationships, that we can very effectively prevent some of the substance abuse that is occurring right now. Marty and I have a relationship course. We have developed relationships, marriage, leading into romance, but it has to do with personal relationships. It directs those who participate to learn personalities and to learn the personal traits, values, character that are defining of a person, and to help develop a long-term relationship. We are developing a relationship course on workplace relationships that can be very effective in working relationships that do not lead to dating or marriage and romance and the like. We would like to make that available to you. Call us at 410-586-1875. Send an email to Ron at thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Visit our website, thecooperculture.com. Coaching. Some people are at a state in life where they're allowing factors in the past to dictate their future. Coaching can help a person overcome that and lead a life that is more aligned with their God-given performance. Some people are not performing at their highest potential because of some things in the past. Coaching can help this person overcome those kind of factors that can lead to a better performance. Marty and I are trained coaches. We're certified. We will give you a complimentary coaching session, and through that, you and we will be able to determine if we are a good fit for you to be able to help you overcome anything that can help you reach a higher performance. All of us can benefit from a coach. Marty and I are each working with a coach to help us to be a better performing person. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating from you through this podcast series. We hope you will want to subscribe. We also hope that you'll want to engage with us. Please call us or make comments. Let's share together, because it's through sharing with each other our life experiences that we'll be able to advance people. We look forward to working with you.